maximum distance a residential electrical panel can be from the meter is 15 feet. This requirement is important for maintaining safety and ensuring efficient power distribution within a home. The 15-foot limitation typically refers to the length of the service entrance conductors, which are the wires that connect the meter to the main breaker in the panel. This distance is measured from the point where the service entrance conductors leave the meter enclosure to the point where they terminate at the main disconnect in the electrical panel. There are several reasons for this distance limitation. Firstly, it helps to minimize voltage drop. Voltage drop occurs when the voltage at the end of a conductor is less than the voltage at the source, which can cause appliances and equipment to operate inefficiently or even malfunction. By limiting the length of the service entrance conductors, the voltage drop is kept within acceptable limits. Secondly, it reduces the risk of damage to the conductors. Longer conductors are more susceptible to physical damage, such as being cut or crushed, which can create a safety hazard. By keeping the conductor short, the risk of damage is minimized. Thirdly, it simplifies the installation and maintenance of the electrical system. Shorter conductors are easier to work with and require less support, which can save time and money. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not specifically state the maximum distance between the meter and the panel as a general rule. The 15-foot guideline is often a local code or utility company requirement. Electrical codes and regulations can vary depending on your location. Always consult with your local building department or a qualified electrician to determine the specific requirements in your area. However, the NEC does provide requirements for service entrance conductors, which indirectly influence the placement of the panel relative to the meter. Firstly, the NEC specifies the minimum size of service entrance conductors based on the load they will be carrying. The larger the load, the larger the conductors must be to prevent overheating and voltage drop. Secondly, the NEC requires that service entrance conductors be protected from physical damage. This can be achieved by using conduit, which is a protective pipe that encloses the conductors. Thirdly, the NEC specifies the maximum length of service entrance conductors based on the voltage drop. The voltage drop must not exceed 3% for branch circuits or 5% for feeders. To calculate the voltage drop, you need to know the length of the conductors, the current they will be carrying, and the resistance of the conductors. In general, it is best to locate the electrical panel as close to the meter as possible to minimize voltage drop and reduce the risk of damage to the conductors. However, there may be other factors to consider, such as the location of appliances and equipment, and the layout of the building. If you are unsure about the best location for your electrical panel, consult with a qualified electrician. They can assess your specific needs and recommend the best solution. When planning the electrical system for a residence, several factors should be considered to ensure safety and efficiency. Firstly, determine the total electrical load of the house. This includes the power requirements of all appliances, lighting, and other electrical equipment. Secondly, select the appropriate size of service entrance conductors and electrical panel. The conductors and panel must be large enough to handle the total electrical load of the house. Thirdly, install the electrical panel in a location that is easily accessible and protected from moisture and physical damage. Fourthly, use conduit to protect service entrance conductors from physical damage. Fifthly, ensure that all electrical work is performed by a qualified electrician and that it complies with all applicable codes and regulations. The service entrance conductors play a critical role in delivering electrical power to a building. These conductors connect the utility company's service drop or service lateral to the building's main disconnect switch, typically located within the electrical panel. Firstly, the size of service entrance conductors is determined by the calculated electrical load of the building based on the NEC or local codes. The larger the load, the larger the conductors must be to safely carry the current. Secondly, service entrance conductors must be adequately insulated to prevent electrical shock and short circuits. The insulation type must be suitable for the environment in which the conductors are installed. Thirdly, service entrance conductors must be protected from physical damage, either by installing them in conduit or using armored cable. Fourthly, the point where the service entrance conductors enter the building must be properly sealed to prevent water and pests from entering. Fifthly, service entrance conductors must be properly grounded to provide a path for fault current to return to the source, helping to protect against electrical shock. When installing an electrical panel, several key considerations are essential for ensuring a safe and reliable electrical system. Firstly, choose an appropriate location for the panel. It should be easily accessible for maintenance and inspections, and it should be protected from moisture and physical damage. Secondly, ensure that the panel has sufficient capacity to accommodate all of the circuits needed for the building. It is generally a good idea to choose a panel with extra spaces for future expansion. Thirdly, properly ground the electrical panel to provide a path for fault current to return to the source. This helps to protect against electrical shock and equipment damage. Fourthly, carefully wire the panel according to the NEC and local codes. Use the correct size and type of wire for each circuit, and make sure that all connections are tight and secure. Fifthly, label all of the circuits in the panel clearly, so that it is easy to identify which circuit controls which devices or appliances. Voltage drop is a significant concern in electrical systems, as excessive voltage drop can lead to inefficient operation of electrical equipment and potential safety hazards. Firstly, voltage drop is the reduction in voltage that occurs as electrical current flows through a conductor. This is due to the resistance of the conductor. Secondly, the amount of voltage drop depends on several factors, including the length of the conductor, the size of the conductor, the amount of current flowing through the conductor, and the temperature of the conductor. Thirdly, the NEC recommends that voltage drop should not exceed 3% for branch circuits or 5% for feeders. Exceeding these limits can cause problems such as dimming lights, overheating motors, and malfunctioning electronic equipment. Fourthly, to minimize voltage drop, use the correct size of conductor for the application. Larger conductors have lower resistance and will result in less voltage drop. Fifthly, keep conductor runs as short as possible to reduce the overall resistance of the circuit. Electrical codes and regulations are designed to ensure the safety of people and property. These codes and regulations are constantly evolving to keep pace with new technologies and changing conditions. Firstly, the NEC is a widely adopted standard for electrical installations in the United States. It is updated every 3 years to reflect the latest advancements in electrical safety. Secondly, local electrical codes are often based on the NEC, but they may also include additional requirements specific to the local area. Thirdly, it is important to be familiar with the electrical codes and regulations that apply to your area before starting any electrical work. Fourthly, all electrical work should be performed by a qualified electrician who is familiar with the applicable codes and regulations. Fifthly, building permits are often required for electrical work, and inspections may be conducted to ensure that the work complies with the codes. When working with electricity, safety should always be the top priority. Electrical shock can be fatal, and electrical fires can cause extensive damage. Firstly, always turn off the power to a circuit before working on it. Use a voltage tester to confirm that the circuit is de-energized. Secondly, wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as rubber gloves and safety glasses. Thirdly, never work on electrical equipment in wet or damp conditions. Fourthly, be aware of the potential hazards of electricity and take steps to avoid them. Fifthly, if you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician to do the work. Electrical panels are available in various sizes and configurations depending on the needs of the building. Selecting the right panel is crucial for ensuring a safe and reliable electrical system. Firstly, consider the total electrical load of the building when choosing an electrical panel. The panel must have sufficient capacity to accommodate all of the circuits needed for the building. Secondly, choose a panel with extra spaces for future expansion. This will allow you to add new circuits as needed without having to replace the entire panel. Thirdly, consider the type of panel. There are two main types of panels, main lug only, or MLO panels, and main breaker panels. A main breaker panel has a main circuit breaker that disconnects the entire panel from the power source. MLO panel does not have a main breaker and is typically used as a subpanel. Fourthly, choose a panel that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories, or all. This ensures that the panel meets safety standards. Fifthly, consider the features of the panel. Some panels have features such as surge protection, which can help to protect sensitive electronic equipment from damage caused by power surges. Grounding is an essential aspect of electrical safety. A properly grounded electrical system provides a path for fault current to return to the source, helping to protect against electrical shock and equipment damage. Firstly, the grounding system consists of a grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or a metal water pipe, and a grounding conductor that connects the grounding electrode to the electrical panel. Secondly, the grounding conductor must be sized according to the NEC. Thirdly, all metal enclosures, such as electrical panels, junction boxes, and appliance housings, must be bonded to the grounding system. This provides a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source. Fourthly, ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are devices that can detect small amounts of current leakage to ground. GFCIs are required in certain locations, such as bathrooms and kitchens, to protect against electrical shock. Fifthly, it is important to periodically inspect the grounding system to ensure that it is in good condition. Corrosion and loose connections can impair the effectiveness of the grounding system. Conduit is a protective pipe that is used to enclose electrical conductors. Conduit provides physical protection for the conductors and helps to prevent electrical shock. Firstly, there are several types of conduit available, including rigid metal conduit, or RMC, intermediate metal conduit, or IMC, electrical metallic tubing, or IMT, and flexible metal conduit, or FMC. Secondly, the type of conduit that is used depends on the application. RMC is the strongest type of conduit and is typically used for underground installations and in areas where the conduit is subject to physical damage. ENT is a lightweight conduit that is typically used for indoor installations. Thirdly, conduit must be properly supported to prevent it from sagging or becoming damaged. Fourthly, conduit fittings, such as connectors and couplings, must be used to connect sections of conduit together. Fifthly, conduit must be properly grounded to provide a path for fault current to return to the source. When working with electrical wiring, it is important to use the correct size and type of wire for the application. Using the wrong size or type of wire can be dangerous and can lead to electrical fires. Firstly, the size of the wire is determined by the amount of current that it will be carrying. The NEC provides tables that specify the allowable ampacity of different sizes of wire. Secondly, the type of wire is determined by the application. Some common types of wire include THHN, THW, and OFF. THHN wire is typically used for indoor installations in dry locations. THW wire can be used in wet or dry locations. UF wire is designed for underground installations. Thirdly, wire must be properly insulated to prevent electrical shock and short circuits. Fourthly, wire must be properly terminated to ensure a good electrical connection. Fifthly, wire must be protected from physical damage. When planning an electrical installation, it is important to create an electrical plan. An electrical plan is a diagram that shows the location of all of the electrical components in a building, including the electrical panel, outlets, switches, and lights. Firstly, an electrical plan can help to ensure that the electrical system is safe and efficient. Secondly, an electrical plan can be used to obtain building permits and to guide the installation of the electrical system. Thirdly, an electrical plan should include the following information: the location of all electrical components, the size and type of wire to be used, the ampacity of each circuit, and the location of all ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs. Fourthly, an electrical plan should be reviewed by a qualified electrician to ensure that it complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Fifthly, an electrical plan should be kept in a safe place for future reference. The main disconnect switch is an important safety feature in an electrical system. The main disconnect switch allows you to quickly and easily disconnect all power to the building in the event of an emergency. Firstly, the main disconnect switch is typically located in the electrical panel. Secondly, the main disconnect switch should be clearly labeled and easily accessible. Thirdly, the main disconnect switch should be tested periodically to ensure that it is working properly. Fourthly, in some jurisdictions, the main disconnect switch is required to be located on the outside of the building. Fifthly, it is important to know the location of the main disconnect switch in case of an emergency. Local codes and utility requirements often impose specific restrictions on electrical installations. It is critical to understand and comply with these regulations to ensure safety and avoid penalties. Firstly, local codes may dictate the types of wiring methods allowed, such as conduit types or cable types. Secondly, utility companies often have specific requirements for the service entrance, including the location of the meter and the type of disconnect switch required. Thirdly, local codes may also address specific safety concerns, such as the need for arc fault circuit interrupters or size in certain areas of the home. Fourthly, it is always advisable to consult with a licensed electrician and the local building department to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Fifthly, failure to comply with local codes and utility requirements can result in fines, delays in project completion, and potential safety hazards.